Welcome in. Welcome into another edition of Chi Time TV with me, Clara Apollo. And absolutely thrilled today to be diving into a topic that is really, really key to our health and wellness. We're talking about negative ions and what they are and how you can access them naturally for yourself. I have two experts in the field here with me. I have Nicholas Cheng, who's a wellness and antioxidant negative ion expert. He's been running his own wellness business for the last 7 years and has built this up internationally over 23 countries. He also owns 2 traditional Chinese medicine clinics in Singapore with integrative therapies to complement with Western treatments. So welcome in, Nicholas. And
everyone.
Also, look who we have here. We have Dr. Wai Ching Lee is back on Chi Time. I don't know why I'm singing, but I'm also so thrilled to have you here. You beautiful, beautiful lady.
Thank you, Clara. Yes.
So Dr. Lee is the founder of Infinity Quantum Qigong and star of the incredible documentary series Quantum Chi. So amazing to have you both here to chat about negative ions. So can I ask you first, Nicholas, to explain to us, what are negative ions? What are we talking about here?
What? That's a good question, actually. So negative ions is actually a very scientific term, right? And also, in fact, it was quite a joke the first time I heard of it, because I thought it was supposed to be helpful. So my first thought was, why is it called negative then? That sounds so like negative, right? Yeah, so actually what I found out later on that actually all of us have been exposed to negative ions one way or another, right? We just don't realize that it's negative ion because there's another more common term of it, which is called antioxidants. So I'm sure we've all heard of antioxidants before, right? Yeah, and in that same trend, antioxidants and negative ions are pretty much the same, just that it's absorbed into the body differently. Yeah, so if you know what antioxidants can do and help us in our bodies, then it's exactly what negative ions does as well.
Brilliant, thank you. So this link between negative ions and antioxidants, they're essentially the same thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Wai Ching, what would you say about negative ions in their relationship to the air element? You know, where are we actually accessing them out in nature?
So in terms of Qigong, that we talk about atmospheric Qi, which are actually the cosmic rays that come through the different stratospheres of the planet, and how the energies from the sun, the moon, the stars, the planet really affect our health as atmospheric Qi. And we know that with the molecules of oxygen entering into our bodies and how it reacts with the inner alchemy, the neigong of our systems, both our energy field as well as our physical system. Now, the negative ions and positive ions actually are just terms for molecules and atoms that either have extra electrons, that would be negative ions, or less electrons, and the different ratio that makes them positive or negative. And it's that balance that keeps us healthy. And of course, then with the interaction with the oxygen molecules, which is neutral, and then it relates with all kinds of chemical responses and reactions in our bodies to balance our hormones through the endocrine glands, and then the bloodstream, which is key in Qi health and any health, and also in the immune system. So those terms are just used to relate the shall we say, the calculation of these molecules that is in the air or not, right? And for example, the higher negative ions is in nature.
Right? Exactly.
There we have, coming back to it, it's all in nature. In fact, the highest frequencies of negative ions and the collection is in nature. The best thing is just go for a walk. And
the best form.
Especially waterfall, beach, and forests, and practice, taking in. And then, of course, yes, and positive ions, that is, I know I agree with Nicholas, like, that they're positive, that's indoors, emitted by TVs and electrical devices, phones, and even the outgassing of chemicals from our furniture and around us, and buildings that lead to sick building syndrome and so on.
Well, so this creates positive ions. It creates particles in the air that are, okay. And we want to, as you say, negate these. So I remember having this little contraption, many years ago, that was creating negative ions in the atmosphere, and it had little dots on it, and I could see all the dust collecting around it. So this whole idea of like particles in the air that are not healthy, that's interesting, isn't it? That we need clear air.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so actually the dust that's collected on the machine that you just mentioned, right? So what happens is that when negative ions come in contact with the air, right, and it reacts with the positive ions, so it can become in the form of bacteria or PM2.5, it would actually negate it. And then what happens is that it just becomes dust, and that settles on the floor. Yeah, so it's quite interesting, because the first time I heard about it and actually used a really, really strong negative ion machine that discharges a lot of air, what happened was it very quickly the floor actually felt quite dusty. Yeah, when I asked about it, I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, so the person that shared it with me actually said, yeah, you'd rather have it on the floor as dust, right, rather than it going into your
lungs.
body, breathing it as lungs.
Exactly, because it's that what we're breathing in is such an intimate act. What we're breathing in, we're taking the external world into our internal landscape, and we are trusting that the air is going to give us this life-giving oxygen, but also these magical, like, negative ions in the air. I think are the chi in the air, yes, and that, like you so rightly said, Ching, that out in nature there's abundance of negative ions, but we're coming into the wintertime, certainly in the UK and the Northern Hemisphere here, and we're in another period of lockdown. So people are being kept in their houses, and this, we already have instances of seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, and because people are not outside enough. And I even see people outside enough wearing their masks, don't get me started, but when this encouragement for people to be truly healthy, to be truly healthy, is a call that is not being, I feel, sent out by any of our governments in any country. Sorry, is that a sweeping statement? But it does feel like that. It's all it's all fear, and yet fear depletes your immune system. And what we want is healthfulness, stress. Exactly. So let's have a little chat about stress then, about how this affects the body and how this decreases your immunity, and how bringing in a negative ion atmosphere can help to increase that. Either of you, who wants to answer that?
Well, maybe I'll just to do with cortisol, the production of cortisol, and also the balance of serotonin in the body, so that like positive ions and stress would cause an increase in it, which will cause fatigue and depression, sadness, SAD, and so the negative ions aspect would create like a sense of wellness and freshness as it relates with the production of oxytocin, and so it's quite alchemical, and it's quite delicate, because it's like food, and food has negative positive ions as well. Devitalized and processed foods are emitting positive ions, right? And so it's important. It's like food, yes, and it relates to also the alkalinity of the blood and the acidity of the blood. Okay?
Very good point.
So negative and positive ions affect blood health, and in Chinese cosmology and PCM, the blood, the way the flow and the richness of the blood is most key in carrying the qi to the cellular structures of our cells, and nourishing. Even if we don't have chronic disease, at least we keep rejuvenating.
Indeed, absolutely. Would you like to add to that, Nicholas?
Yeah, actually, one thing that definitely, and Ching, that's you're very spot on like a lot of the cause of stress. And actually, over the last 7 years that I've helped people, I realized that one of the key things really is stress. And as I observe more and more, right, I realized one of like stress is something that is so, how do I put it? It's very hard to gauge because everybody have different stress levels, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that if one person can take more stress than the other, it means that that their bodies are not suffering anything that is stress-inducing. And stress, in fact, is I personally realize it's one of the most dangerous things because it's kind of hidden, right? It's something like, for example, if you're sick and all, and you recover from it, that's it, you stop, right? But when it comes to stress, it's something that it's with you all the time, right? Where you go to work, when you sleep, when you wake up, when you do your things, if it's so long as it's on your mind and you keep thinking about it, that stress will keep happening. And it's a very, very dangerous long-term issue that can cause effects and damage to the body.
Yeah, I think the word that was coming up for me as you were speaking was insidious. I think stress is insidious. It creeps in and we don't notice it. And how we monitor our stress, it's not easy because we're in it. And I also think that we need to rest more from the stress. It's not just like having a good night's sleep. You need to have a good period of time to rest and replenish to really get through it. But would you say that there's a large portion of the Western world currently under increased levels of stress and therefore undermining their health simply because they're stressed?
You mean in terms of, I believe in relation to what, in terms of the coronavirus or in general?
Well, I think that is part of it. I think that is definitely creating more stress and more mental health disorders as well. Where can people go to feel safe? How can they take care of themselves? And so I think what would be interesting here is to continue on, because a part of this conversation is about not just getting negative ions from the atmosphere and the air, because let's face it, when it's bad weather, you don't really want to go out in it, but actually where you can introduce negative ions into your home. And yes, you can have those little machines from ages ago, but I have found out actually, and Dr. Ching Li has introduced me to, and you, to these incredible clothing. And I mean, because being an ex-costume designer, right, I'm like, healthy clothing, is this possible that what we wear could actually be health giving? And then he said to me, yes, actually I found some. I'm like, okay, is it made of like silver filaments, and is it all magical golden alchemies or whatever? And she said, no, have a look at this. So just a little bit of backstory. I actually had a repetitive strain injury from being a costume designer on my arms. It stopped me from doing that anymore. And so one of the things that I've been looking at is how to take care of it. It's many, many years ago, but I have to watch it, all the typing that I do on the computer. And those of you watching and listening, is that, you know, the stresses and strains we put on our bodies just from these repetitive injuries that we've done. And so I was very interested to find something that I could wear that could help this. And so enter the negative ions clothing. And my goodness, yeah, who would like to take us up a little bit further on this and maybe share your story on how this came into your life? Yeah.
Right. Since I introduced it to you, maybe I'll jump in.
That would be lovely.
Yes. So, as a Qigong teacher and healer and meditation teacher too. So, especially, as you know, as we both are, and I love working with you in Glastonbury when I was there. Looking forward to coming back. Is that we realize that we practice this meditation and Qigong and how powerful that is. But sometimes we need a little help. We need a little external help, right? And also, as I mentioned, very key is food and how we address that. And so I'm always looking and researching actually fabrics for many, many years. And I found fabrics that have soaked in tourmaline, germanium, fibers that are natural. So this was because I want to create a line of Qigong clothes for myself, you know, as I practice. So, and then I was introduced to this, and I was like amazed, especially when I found out that it was actually created as a social cause for Hiroshima and Nagasaki victims. It really touched me there, and I said, because we found out that miso was also alkalizing blood of the victims as well. And there came from there a whole culinary concept called, macrobiotics. And so I was writing concepts for healing centers and hospitals. And so I got really excited and had to try it. And when I tried it, I found that this had effects on actually vitalizing my chi body. It had no negative effects, except that certain times there would be maybe sweating or for some people itching as it draws out the toxins. So I studied more.
That's the healing reaction.
Yes, a healing reaction. And so I got really excited and just, got the whole range. Like I'm wearing this camisole and I'm wearing this the what do you call it, the tights, and then of course this beautiful turquoise shawl which I love, and it gets a little chilly, I'll just put on this. So what was really exciting was that, like you had found out, Clara, that as I put this on like that, not only does it look good, but it's actually protecting me from radiation. And this constant contact with the skin, it needs the friction, it's causing negative ions. And I know, and this
just
like,
what? Really? How does this work? What is the science behind this then?
Exactly. And then we get Nick to come and talk about that.
Okay.
This has been in place for 30 years. And I found out especially these Asian ladies, right? Mostly that. And this is the first introduction into the UK.
It is.
And they have been making fabulous fashion. I don't know how they create it, but I'm taking note of it. Mm-hmm. And you should too as a costumer. So they actually have pieces from 30 years ago, and they swap it like vintage pieces, which I love because, right now at this time, we don't want to buy new stuff. There's no wastage. No, we're going back to the ecosystem of honoring the planet, and there's no toxicity to this, and there's no the certification that shows that it does not cause, let's say, any kind of toxification of the earth, and it's earth friendly, and so on. And so it's I like every step of the way. It was like healing, and yeah, and if I just add I know I'm speaking a little bit more, but my friends in California are really listening to this, and they are excited because the fabric is also fire retardant, and we know how that important it is with fires happening around the world. And people can, someone in Japan, right, Nick, who covered himself with a blanket or this shawl, and
he just ran out of it.
Yeah, and only burns on his hand where he was holding the blanket. And I mean,
that's amazing story.
I love the blankets because he's
the implications for this are like huge. So can we just dive into the science of it before we continue on with our excitement?
I know, I'm excited. Nicholas, go ahead.
It is so great. So Nicholas, over to you. Talk science. What is this magical thread? How is it made? Where is it? What's the history here? Can you fill us in?
Okay, so I would say that, I wouldn't say it's magical to us, right? Because it's just so amazing, right? But for me, when I first heard about it, same. I was like, oh, this is amazing. But somebody, for me, because I started off with knowing about negative ions was 7 years ago, was because of my mom-in-law. So she was diagnosed with cancer, and my wife and I were quite desperate to help her, and we were willing to try anything. Right. Thankfully, we were we were connected with the right people, and actually, it was a doctor who told me that negative ions can help. And when I first heard it, same thing. I was like, negative ions. Okay, since it's a doctor sharing this with me, let me go research a bit about it. And that's when I found out about all the huge benefits that we are currently talking about. And I think the one thing that I want to drill in is the immunity, right? Where it was able to increase of negative ions basically would can increase your body's immunity. And we all know that for cancer patients, immunity is something that is very low, right? And you want to keep yourself, and if the immunity cells, the NK cells in particular are high, right, they will be able to combat that. So I was like, okay, fine, I have to get these negative ions. So where can I get it? Which eventually led me to the clothes. I mean, we can talk about the convenience later, but I was very curious because I was like wondering, why are the clothes working in this way, right? And that's where Ching was just talking about the whole Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombing. So this product has been around for almost more than 60 over years already, right? And it was started off because they realized that to combat high radiation, because high radiation in our body basically causes a lot of free radicals, right? Oxidizing very quickly in our body. And they realized that one thing that is actually free in nature and when used in high amounts, which is negative ions, right, would be able to help negate free radicals. So they tried many ways to create all sorts of things, right, including the material. So this material is interesting because when you go to Japan, actually in Japan, when I first went to Japan and I shared with them about negative ions, I was like, where is this? I heard so much about it, right? It was quite funny because nobody knew what negative ions was. I was like, wait a minute, if everybody is using negative ions, why does nobody know what negative ions was? So I realized later that it was actually, I was using the wrong term. And in Japan, it's called minus ion. So the moment I said that, right, you started to see everywhere that, oh, there are many products out there. But what is interesting with the negative ion clothes that I think all three of us are wearing today is one, it lasts a lifetime, right? Because that's why Ching was saying that 30 years, the fiber, you can reuse it over and over again. And to me, I find that very important because environmentally, it's environmentally friendly. And behind that is because it's actually the science. There's actually a lot of science behind it. So forgive me for going very quickly into a bit of science. So we all know about the periodic table, right? The periodic table, the term, and the material is one of the atoms in it on the 7th periodic table is the chlorine, right? Cl. So Cl naturally on outer shell has 7 electrons, right? And for it to stabilize, right, to become a neutral atom, it would actually steal an electron. So that would be Cl minus. So what happens is in this material, it has chlorine, right? Or rather, it uses the chlorine atom inside, right? And it actually grabs the electrons, okay? But what is behind the magic and the secret sauce, which of course the Japanese would not reveal, is that they are able to make that electron free, okay? And because it's free, it would stay on the surface of the material, right? And because our body naturally is slightly positive, the electrons actually get attracted into our body. And therefore you transfer the electrons, or in the simpler term, negative ions, into our body. So I can do a quick demo now, right? I'm a man of science. So for me, it was like, okay, I hear all this, like, so what, like, how can I tell that all our materials are made of negative ions, right? So Clara, I see that you are using your shawl, right? So I have something that's similar, right? So this is this is actually customized into a mouth mask that I actually use it for myself. Okay, so I've been using it for I think many months already, of course, wash frequently. So this is a meter. Okay, so this measures static. Okay, and where there is static, it would you will notice where there's static, it also creates ions, and it creates both positive and negative ions. So I'm going to turn it on now. All right. So the wrong button. Okay. So can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you look at it now, right, what does it read? Okay, bye.
-0.2.
Yeah, -0.2. Yeah, so that's good, right? That means that in the atmosphere where I have small amounts of negative ions, and that's very likely because of my clothes, and also because I have a ionizer blasting at me some distance away. Okay, so I'm going to zero it, right? And I'm going to take this piece of cloth, right? So this is the negative ion cloth. So notice that as I go closer, what can you read?
It's blank at the moment, is it?
Sorry,
Yeah,
I think I turned it on.
Yeah,
oh no, I pressed the off button.
Okay. Yeah, try again.
All right,
And
there we
again.
go.
Take it
Okay, right. So I'm going to do it now.
Okay, now it's going to 0.5. Wait, it's.
Sorry, it's not working very well.
Yeah,
kind of
bamboo's
interferes
getting in the
with
way.
the image, the background.
Yeah, I think I'm going to turn off the background for a bit.
Yeah, turn off the background. Let's see.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so you can see over here, right? So you can
Yeah.
see, put there,
Mhm.
right? You can see the number increasing.
Yeah. Oh,
The more I rub,
wow.
the higher it gets. Yeah. So one is you can see that at rest it's negative, right? So where there's negative and this measures static, it also helps generate negative ions at the surface, right? And as I rub, and how this material works is by generating a lot of friction. So the more we move, the more negative ions it generates also, right? And because our skin is positive, right? So that's how it gets absorbed in so easily. Yeah. So it's literally like walking around in the forest. And the more you walk, the more you run, the more your body actually generates.
So I love this because it's encouraging us to be a part of our health. You know, we've got this, but we don't just sit in it passively. We do our qigong, we do our movements, we do our, it's like moving is part of activating it, and having layers of it as well creates more. So this is bringing us into this self-responsibility for healing, because what we're saying is that when we take on these negative ions, the body can come into a more of a self-healing mechanism, which is what it is. And of course, we've got all the stagnations and positive ions and stuff in the stress in the way, but these negative ions can help us to come back to this level of health where we heal ourselves, right?
Yep. And one thing very important about negative ions is that the moment you stop using negative ions, because of our environment, I mean, I'm not actually in a bamboo forest. If I was to be fantastic, right?
We know that now.
Yeah, but where we are, because it's slightly positive, right? So the moment you stop using negative ions, your body immediately starts to lose negative ions and be exposed to more and more positive ions. So one other thing that's very important, right, is to keep it going. Yeah. So if you're always in the forest and all, that's fine, right? Which actually studies has shown that people who since young grew up in villages or in surrounding with a lot of forests, they tend to be a lot stronger as they grow older, and the immunity gets stronger as well. So that's a good foundation, right? However, if you're in cities and all and you don't have that, then yeah, we're kind of losing out in that way.
Wow. I mean, so yeah, like we can't be outside all the time, but we do want to be healthy. And so many people are still keeping their Wi-Fi's on at night. Why do you do that? Really, you can turn it off. You really can turn it off. I mean, I highly recommend that you do. But the problem is people that live close together is your neighbour's Wi-Fi, and goodness knows what else. So particularly now when you're sleeping, you're very vulnerable. You open your energy fields when you're sleeping, and this is something that when I first talked to Ching about it, still you've got to get the bedding. That's the most important thing to start with, because then when you're sleeping, you have got this blanket literally of negative ions around you. So maybe you'd like to tell us a bit about that, Ching.
Oh, right. So, when we are, well, first of all, I'm writing it into my healing centers and hospitals, because when people are sleeping, of course, as you mentioned, that we are actually in the process of rejuvenation. We really should be resting, like you said, and rejuvenating. Instead, we are bombarded by all these positive ions by the neighbors and people sleeping with the phones next to them as well, and so yes, and constantly. So I really felt that, okay, like in hospitals, I teach people how to meditate and circulate the chi of people who are in rehab, not just lie there and just be vulnerable, but rather take back their chi abilities, to rejuvenate, taking sovereignty of our own health. So why not with this as well? If it really works, and you need to keep raising the frequencies. And also I have all these. At the moment I'm experimenting with all this. So now I have.
Of course you are. Yes. What have you got going on?
I love to. I mean, as a researcher, I have to. So I got this little hat that I use.
Oh, so cute.
and then so you can look cute when you're sleeping too, right? And so there's also eye mask that I thought, because oh yes, by the way, over the eyes, we can actually improve our vision. So I'm really keen to do that. And I'm 63, and I'm -1. But recently I just did a test. It's 0, minus 0.5. So over the few months, my eyesight has actually improved. So I put this.
Fantastic.
I put this over my eyes, and they have eye masks, which I didn't get, but I prefer this. And then also, you know, over the face. And by the way,
Yeah,
when I put
that's
it over the
such a good look.
Thank you, darling.
Well,
Yeah.
this is funny because this is
And you know what's exciting with this? I have to segue into this.
okay.
It's
Go on.
breathable.
It's breathable. It is. Oh, can I share with you what happened? Because I've got one of these, right, which is
The neck warmer?
it's a neck one because I have like a throat situation where I had reflux, and I also had an injury to my vocal cords a few years ago now, and so I knew that this was an area that I really wanted to keep protecting. So this is one of my faves, although I quite like a blue one, I must say, to link in with the chakra. But anyway, so what I do out in that world out there, people with masks on, I actually use this like that, and I just thought, because it's so simple, because we don't need them on the whole time. We just need them on when we're around people that could be vulnerable, right? So then I noticed I was walking back home from doing the shopping one day, and there was somebody local that had a bonfire, and it was really like, oh, my washing's out, classic, typical. Anyway, I put this up to get rid of the smell, and it did. I couldn't believe it. I literally took it off, bonfire, put it on, no bonfire. I'm like,
it's amazing, right?
What? So that just showed me that how instantly you have that experience of something real shifting here. And like you said, this is quite fine fabric. It's
quite thin, in fact.
It's stretchy and it's quite clear.
It's quite porous as well.
Yeah, so you don't feel like you're being smothered, that you can breathe easily, but you're breathing healthfully. And I just think this is brilliant. I really do. So thank you for that.
Right. And now we have masks.
Yeah.
You can breathe through.
Yeah. In fact, some of the materials, like Clara, the scarf that you were just showing us, right? So we actually have a mouth mask, right? That's actually made up of 4 layers of that. 4 layers, right? And imagine that just with that alone, people are still finding it a lot more breathable, right? And because, one thing I forgot to mention, that one thing unique about negative ions is that the higher you go, right, the more your body will start to benefit. So studies have shown that when you're exposed to about 1,000 to 5,000 negative ions, that's actually quite useful for you, right? It's good for us, right? And that's also where it coincides, where 1,000 negative ions per cc of air is considered the bare minimum for fresh air. Yeah. So anything above 5,000 though, where you're reaching about the 50,000 range, that is when your body, based on research and all, they realize that your immunity starts to increase. And you can tell that because people who start using this, right, will start to find themselves feeling a little bit warmer, right? And if you research on warmth, right, as your basal or your body temperature starts to increase, every degree increase in your body actually boosts the immune system to up to about 30%.
Oh, so, right. So I can tell this to my menopausal friends that are going through the hot flushes. Actually, it's your chi rising and you're getting healthier, which I actually do believe. But you know,
yes, you're absolutely right.
Because when I first came across this and I was chatting to Ching about it, I said, but it's a polymer. I only wear natural fabrics because of this whole sweat factor. And then I think you said something to me like, well, I like to wear Izzy Miyake and it's all full of this. So I'm like, okay, the designers do it, fair enough. But so I thought I need to experiment. What is this like? And interestingly, it seems to be cooling when I need it to be cooling. It seems to be warming when I need to be. How does it do that? Temperature regulation just seems to have a wisdom to it. Can you explain that?
That has everything to do with the fiber. That's one of the features of the fiber that we have. So yeah, absolutely right. It's temperature regulating. So when it's warm, like where we are in Singapore and Malaysia, right, I can wear even up to 2 layers of the t-shirt and actually feel quite comfortable as if I was wearing my cotton shirt last time, right? And the same 2 pieces of clothes that I wear, I can actually wear that to Iceland, right? It's about 14 degrees with a winter jacket, right? And I actually feel comfortable. And I was quite surprised because I heard the benefits of it. I heard that it can help, right? But to actually feel it after that, that's quite amazing.
That is really amazing. And how useful is that? It means you don't have to pack as many items when you go to cold countries, pack like key ones. So
that allows you to buy more stuff though. So
yeah, but also as you said about the layers. So Ching has got her layers on there. Beautiful color that actually really suits you.
Yeah,
really lovely.
And actually there's one more magical number, right? So
Okay.
I say magic, but I mean science, right? So anything above 100,000, right, negative ions. So if you layer upon layer upon layer, you get up to 100,000. What happens is that your cells start to realize that, hey, I'm getting enough negative ions, I'm getting enough energy. I can start to reverse some of the more chronic issues. So that is where people with more chronic related stuff, right, such as eczema, right, in my mom-in-law's case, her cancer, right, because the immunity and cells were all improving, that's where it could actually, that's where you started to see some recovery effects as well. So why I was talking about the layering is because one layer of the scarf that you have generates about 10,000 negative ions. So that's actually very good already for normal human, right? But the moment you start to layer on, right, 2 layers, because of the way it rubs each other, instead of 20,000, which is what I thought it would be, 10 plus 10 is 20, it actually becomes 40,000. So it's 2 to the power of n based on the number of layers. So theoretically, if you wear 4 layers, you're actually at the 100,000 level.
Right. So this is just showing us. Oh, like my Chilling has just nipped on a new outfit here. She's got a different color on. In fact, I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to come into a take 2 on this because I want to get Nikki Gresham-Record in here too to talk about, because her and I are the people to contact if you want to access these amazing items in the UK. So that is you have to send a little message to the Cheeky Temple. That's CHIQITEMPLE @gmail.com, and we can send you information and also put you in touch with Wai-Ching Lee and Nicholas Cheng. But I would like to share with you a chronic ailment story now, right? So I used to be a ballet dancer, and I also used to like running around in nature, and I used to twist my ankle, and my right ankle, you would get twisted quite a lot. And then I'd be going up on points, you know, and doing all that stuff with your feet that you really shouldn't do, but it looks very beautiful. And I just sort of, you know, my ankle would click and it would get better. And then the older I've got and the more that I've done some weight bearing, carrying things up and down a cliff, don't ask, that's a whole nother story. But that is what exacerbated this problem. My right ankle started to become really painful and I couldn't dance anymore. It wasn't ballet dancing then, just ecstatic dance is what I love to do. I'm able to stand in the Wu Chi of the Qigong, but any movement, any walking was tricky. It was really tricky. And I'm like, I was putting on the Rustox cream and I was getting acupuncture and doing the healing and kind of helped a little bit. And I thought, well, let's put these negative ions magic to the real test. And so I got this, doesn't look like much. It's like a little toeless sock. It's an ankle support. And I thought I'd just wear this every night. And I've got the blanket as well. So I'm lying underneath it. So I've got my layers going on. And I just stuck with it. And I thought, I don't want to wear it during the day because I want my ankle to still strengthen and work. It didn't need support with that. It needed something more. It was really deep in the joint. And it was like, how can this heal? And I got out my MBTs, the footwear that you rock on, that you walk really purposefully, like the Maasai barefoot warriors walk only in a shoe. But anyway, so I was combining this, and I found after about a couple of weeks that it was getting better. And I thought, okay, this is interesting. Wait till it rains. Wait till it gets cold. It will get bad again. It didn't. And I'm like, amazing. What is happening? So like a month of this, and I have no pain in my ankle now. I wear this every night because I know that I don't want it to come back. But that to me is proof that something other is going on here, something that I hadn't been able to access through all the different healing things that I've been doing. This was the component that was missing to my body needing that balancing to be able to heal itself. So I thank you so much for bringing this into my life. It's just made a huge difference. And that's just my story. So I know there's a lot of other people that have had remarkable stories around this, like your mother-in-law, indeed, Nicholas. And I wonder if you've got a testimony you'd like to share with us, Ching. Have you got somebody that's had an interesting journey with this magical clothing?
Besides you and Nikki
and Nikki, yeah.
and Lynn, right? And also May, who is also dealing with some conditions, and that's helped her as well quite a lot. And so, well, they're just too many actually. And I've just checked in with some other people, and they've had the experiences. And of course, it's a what do you call it, by analogy, but I think it's good enough. It's like qigong, when people want proof, empirical science. Of course, then there's the science of it, and of course, there's technology is proprietary. At this point, I want to thank the scientists. I want to thank the scientists for creating this, and it is to me a fabric for the future, right? And I know there are many emulations, like copies, right, or in the fashion of they're trying, but they don't last that long. I know that there's some masks that are made from nano fabrics, and they last 150 washes, let's say.
Okay, but this does, and this is a certified fabric as well, isn't it?
Yes.
But like you say, that's interesting. You bring it up. It does need to be washed on a cold wash and with a natural detergent.
Absolutely. And wash often, because like I know with cancer patients, they should wash every 4 hours, because it draws
golly.
so
it draws it out and it holds it, but it's a polymer. So how does it hold the? Oh, okay, it's magic. It's magic.
It's magic. It's science and it's magic, and I love it.
It needs to be cleared out.
It just comes out from our sweat.
That's beneficial. There's a lot of beneficial technology.
Yeah, that's true.
When we have our devices, the phone, and so on, if we have that, I feel that at some point we already have, like, technologies that can neutralize these negative, negative, harmful radiation, the EMFs, right? And so we have to educate ourselves and take the step to protect ourselves, especially at this time. We have to boost the immune system, and we have to keep our spirit high, right? And we can try, but then it's also a biological function, because when we balance our hormones, we balance our emotions. So we may struggle during this time of a cocooning or lockdown, and a lot of fears are coming up. And this actually, yes, that's right. Someone who's using it says that it's kept the spirit high. Now that is
brilliant. That is so important. Your mental health is incredibly important at this time. And then knowing that if you're wearing the clothing or sleeping underneath the fabrics, you're doing something as well. As you don't have to constantly think about it. You just got it on, you're moving around, doing your thing. You can get on with your life. You don't have to think, okay, you can do different supplements, and you can make sure your food is healthy, and all of that is important as well. But it's not something that you have to constantly think about. Once you've got it on, it supports everything else that you want to be doing. And that's what you want as well. You want to be free to be able to express the sovereign being that you are on the planet at the moment, to bring through your gifts at this time to help humanity evolve. Yes.
Yes. And that's what we're right?
Yeah.
Good.
Super convenient.
Yeah, exactly. So absolutely great talking with you both. Thank you so much for being here on Chi Time.
Thank you, Clara. Thank you for inviting.
You're so welcome. And as I said, if anybody wants to find out more, do contact me on the cheekytemple@gmail.com. That's CHIQITEMPLE@gmail.com. And we will put you in touch with someone that can help get this amazing clothing to you, or just to find out more. Keep the conversation flowing. As I said, Nikki and I are bringing it into the UK, and you also have offices, where is it, over in the US and Taiwan and Singapore, Hong Kong and Malaysia. So this is a global product that can reach out to wherever you need to be. So please do contact us if you've got any questions. We are here to help, because we're all in this together right now. Yeah. So Keep your chi up, my friends. And thank you so much for watching Chi Time TV. Bye for now.
Bye. Stay safe.